If you're like me, when trying to learn something, sometimes it's just better to watch it in action. So I'm going to build a character using the guidelines I described in the first video. Hey everyone, I'm Chris Norman, and I'm going to walk you through my process, warts and all. To make this example more accessible, I'm going to start with the GURPS Lite list of skills and advantages, since they're smaller and free. And of course, I'm going to use the free, open-source GURPS Character Sheet version 5. The setting is low fantasy, starting with 150 character points and 25 points in disadvantages, with 5 points in quirks. I've only mentioned quirks once, I think, in the power videos, but in short, a quirk is a 1-point disadvantage. Basically, it provides a minor aspect around which you can roleplay, without being serious enough to require a self-control roll. GURPS Power Up 6 really expands on the whole quirks concept. But since I'm trying to do this for free, I'll point you to Ted Brock's PDF called GURPS Power Downs 1 Quirks, a pun on the normal GURPS naming convention, I think. You know me and puns. Which is a collection of quirks that he gathered from the posts on the Steve Jackson Games forums. Link in the description. Thinking of a character concept, it all started with a single idea. I wanted to play a brutally honest character. I thought if done right, it could be pretty funny. So then I thought, what would happen to a brutally honest child? Well, they'd be shunned a bit. Nothing overtly, but over time the child might find more fun playing in the forest, frolicking with the animals. And so that's how he became an outdoorsman with his various quirks. Not a ranger, but somebody who knows how to get around in the outdoors and use a bow. Now, I know I've said that you have to have a character concept to build a character, but you must understand, I didn't mean that you have to know exactly every single thing about the character. You should have a good core concept, with maybe some specific advantages or disadvantages and skills that you want. And the rest, well, you figure out as you build them. This character is going to be an outdoorsman. Good with a bow and probably some other outdoorsy-like skills. He'll have a major disadvantage of honesty, and maybe some kind of outcast thing. But he still deals with humans, so he does have skills that are valuable to the village. I don't envision him to be incredibly smart or strong, but maybe he is. But I do expect him to be agile. His playmates were the animals in the forest. And he knows how to use a bow and knives. I mean, he had to survive, and yeah, maybe a staff. But that's it. That's all I have for the character concept. But it gives me a start, and hopefully you'll see how you can take that start and build a character from it. And this is really a stream of consciousness thing. You're going to see exactly how I go from a concept to a complete character. Obviously, you don't have to do it this way, but if you're uncertain how to get going, you can follow in my footsteps and hopefully have some fun. Okay, first things first. If your GCS is GCS version 5, doesn't look like this and it looks dark, you need to go to Settings, Colors, and change it from automatic or dark mode into light mode. I prefer light mode. Also, as mentioned in the previous video, we use PK, Levine's separation of perception and willpower from IQ. And to fix that in GCS, you go to the default attributes, scroll down to willpower and perception, and change the base value from IQ to 10, and then save. So following my own guidelines, we need to build the disadvantage first, or at least figure out the major disadvantage first so that we can determine the costs. I'm going to do this all in the Lite library, of course, so we will open up the master library, and there's the GURPS Lite advantages. We'll open up the GURPS advantages, and I will select the tag over here to disadvantage. And as I said, Stan is painfully honest, so we will drag over honesty. But that's not painful enough. He can resist being honest on a 12 or less, so we're going to change that. I'll double click on that, and we'll change it from 12 or less to 6 or less. Now I can either click on this plus to apply the changes, or I'm a keyboard person, so I can just hit Control Return. And there we go. We've got 20 points in just being painfully honest. And because of that, he kind of has a lower status than most people. People kind of overlook him. He's not complete trash, but he gets overlooked a lot. So that will be status. And I'm going to say it's because he's an outsider or a loner. Now, you can have positive statuses, but because this is a minus cost, it's a negative status. He'll get a reaction modifier when he's talking to certain people because they will look at his status and go, oh, you're him. And he gets 5 points in quirks. So the light library does have quirks. We'll drag one over, and then we'll have to edit it and duplicate it. And again, I can click on the checkbox or Control-Enter. So I'll duplicate this 4 times, Control-U, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then edit them all. I borrowed a few from Ted Brown's Power Downs, the scruffy looking, basically, no matter what happens, even if he gets dressed up and people make him look nice over a short amount of time, he'll quickly start to look like, scruffy. And that'll get a minus reaction for anybody who cares about that kind of stuff. He also loves natural garlic, puts it on everything, so he starts to smell like garlic. Yeah, he also talks to animals as if they understand, which for the longest time were his only friends. And of course, he talks and mumbles to himself, which can be annoying to other people. And finally, he won't kill squirrels. Sorry, that's a no-go. Those were his best friends growing up, so it's just not going to happen. So I scroll this over, and there we go. I have 180 points unspent. And using the guidelines for 180 points, we want this many points in attributes, advantages, and skills. Okay, so now I'm going to sort the traits so that the disadvantages go to the bottom. And now we work on primary attributes. Something that was brought up in comments on the last video is that 1 point of health makes a huge difference. Rolling versus a 10 is a 50-50 chance. So for all of your checks on whether you go unconscious or you die or you're affected by poison, it's a 50-50. But 10 points gives you a health of 11, and that raises it to like 63.5%. A whole lot better. So we're going to start there. And Stan's an outdoorsman. He's going to bowsman, that kind of stuff. So I want to give him a pretty decent dex. And looking at the GURPS Wiki, I wanted to go above average. I wanted to get into the exceptional value. So I think 13 dex is a good start. I'll start with that. I don't think he's any stronger than a normal human being or smarter than a normal human being. So I'm going to leave those at 10. But he is more perceptive. So I want to increase that to 12. Okay, so that brings me to 80 points in attributes. And I was shooting for a target of between 90 and 108. So I don't have to complete it yet, and I can always come back. I'm going to now start looking at some of the advantages that he's going to take. But first, I'm going to get rid of the natural attack bite, because he's never going to bite. So I'll double-click on natural attacks, select bite, right mouse click, delete, and then Control-Enter. So we'll look in the light advantages, and I'll actually use this tag to just find advantages, make it a little smaller. But I know I want high pain threshold. And something that was brought up in a comment on the previous video is that another extremely useful advantage for anybody who's going to be in any kind of melee combat is combat reflexes. It's 15 points, but it provides so many nice features. It's almost a must-have if you're going to be in melee of any type. And of course, he's an outdoorsman. There is a talent, outdoorsman. That's why I kind of like making an outdoorsman character using the light rules, because that's one talent they actually have defined. And per my guidelines, I'm supposed to be spending between 36 and 54 points on advantages. Well, I already got 35, so that's a good start. Why don't we move on to skills? Now, I've already set up my GCS to know where my GURPS Lite file is, and I've also set it up to use an external PDF browser, so that's why it pops up in Sumatra. But if you look at Outdoorsman, that gives me bonuses to camouflage, naturalist, navigation, survival, and tracking. So obviously, I need to add those skills. So I will open up the light skills library. Now, when I brought over the survival, it didn't ask me for any specialization, but I noticed when I look in the PDF, it does say that there are many different types of survival skill which must be learned independently. So I want to identify the various types that he's good at. I'll make survival grasslands. I'll duplicate it, Control-U, and then create one survival forest. That's good enough for him. Okay, those are the skills that benefit from the talent, and that's only 6 points in skills. I'm going to add some more skills. Now, I'm not going to level up these skills just yet to see how many other skills I want to get, and then I'll start to increase the level of the skills that I currently have so that it match more with the character design. And the next thing I got to do is put in his combat skills. So bow, knife, and quarterstaff. And I want to raise these a little bit so he's a little bit better at them. So bow, I'm going to raise up, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut. Control, and then the plus sign, the equals plus sign. Not the one on the number pad. That doesn't work. Control plus equals goes up a point. There you go. So spend 3 more points and get to a 14. We'll do the same with knife and staff. Usually that's about as far as I go with a starting character, because that's the most cost efficient, right? The first level costs 1 point. Second level costs a total of 2 points. The third level costs a total of 4 points. Well, if I need to bring that up to the next level, that's going to cost 4 more points. So that's something good to do later on. But starting out, the first 3 ranks of a skill are your most cost effective. Now, you may still want to do that. Like I may want to bring bow up so that it's a 15. But I'm going to stay with that for the moment. Let's see how the rest of the character goes. So looking through the light skills, I figured, you know what, he knows a little bit of animal handling and scrounging, finding things around the outside. Now that's different than search. Search is actually you're searching a body or a car or a place for hidden things. That's more of a police skill. Scrounging is more what you do when you're looking through a dungeon and trying to find the good stuff. And of course, he's used to stealthing. He runs around in the forest. And, you know, he probably knows how to swim. And, yeah, although he doesn't own one, I'm going to say that he also knows how to ride a horse. That seems pretty good, considering he's, you know, he knows how to handle animals. Yeah, well, we'll just throw that in there. So, riding horse. And we got to put a specialty. That is going to be the horse. And I'll sort it again. So based on the highly scientific guidelines that I created, he's supposed to spend between 27 and 36 points on skills, and I have 23 points on skills, so I'm close. But now I want to move on to some of the basic equipment, because we play with encumbrance, and I want to see how that works with this character. Currently, he's got a dodge of 10 and a move of 6, because his basic speed is 6, so I don't know, can I pump it up more? But let's see how the encumbrance works. Now, if you notice the light equipment, I've reformatted the columns here so you can see it a little better. But if you look at all the references, none of them are light. They're for other parts of the GURPS system. But that's really okay. I mean, the equipment really doesn't have rules associated with it other than attacks. And so normally the most important thing is just how much does it cost and how much does it weigh. Now, the equipment's at the bottom of the character sheet, and so instead of scrolling, I'm just going to change the zoom factor so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so bow, we'll throw that in there. I'll search for armor. I could do it a couple of ways. I could type in what I think the armor is, or there is a tag for body armor, and I'll get the leather armor. We'll see how that works. Personally, I prefer the filter because I got to keep changing this tag, so I'll go over here, and I need to get a quarterstaff, so we'll search for staff. And a couple of knives. So there's a knife, and again, I use the keyboard shortcut Control Plus to add one more knife. Now, I'm going to have to scroll the character around, but I noticed something. This guy doesn't have any spells. I don't need any spells. So what I'm going to do is go into GCS and tell it to display the spells at the bottom. So I'm going to go into the character sheet settings and put spells below notes. And you can see it already happened in the character sheet. And one last thing that we like to do is we put like a backpack or something in other equipment, because stuff in other equipment is not considered part of your encumbrance. And so the way we do this is the minute we get into combat, we throw our backpack to the ground. And so the calculation for encumbrance is basically your fighting trim, so to speak. So I'll go find a backpack and put it there. Okay, so that's sort of a basic fighting trim, but yeah, I was afraid of that. If we look up at encumbrance, he's now at encumbrance light, which brings his dodge down just 1 to a 9, but his move from a 6 to a 4. And I really don't want that to happen. So the reason is he only can carry 20 pounds with a strength of 10. And if we look at the carried equipment, he's due at 28.5 pounds. So there's a couple things I could do. I could try putting in a lighter bow. There is a short bow. It weighs 1 pound less. Let me drag that in there just to see what that looks like. But if you look at the damage, short bow is 1d minus 2. The long bow is at least 1d impaling. I don't want to lose that much. I got to figure out something else, so I'll get rid of the short bow. Well, and leather armor provides 2 DR to every location. You get an extra 2 on your skull because your skull is made of bone. Let's see what cloth armor does. So I'll bring over some cloth armor, and I'll take the leather armor and put it into the other equipment. Well, the weight does go down to 21 pounds, but that brings the DR down to 1. And that extra point can make a huge difference. So I think I'm going to continue with the leather armor, get rid of the cloth armor. And I forgot quiver and arrows. So I got a shoulder quiver. I'm going to grab an arrow, and you can see where the little red line appears on GCS. It's telling me here that it's going to add in to the shoulder quiver because it's indented a little bit. If it shows at the same line, then it goes on the same level. But I want to put this in the shoulder quiver. And of course, it holds 12, so I'll add 12. Control plus. There we go. Ooh, but now my carried equipment is 30.2 pounds. Now, money-wise, we're doing okay. $664 and plus $60 in other equipment at tech level 3, which is what this is. Then he's still got another 300 or so. So that's not an issue. Now, the issue is I really want to keep this equipment. He's going to have 2 knives. He's going to have his quarterstaff. Although, officially, he probably wouldn't have his bow and his quarterstaff together. But I'm not going to be that nitpicky at the moment. I'm going to assume he's carrying that stuff around. Maybe his quarterstaff's on his back or maybe his bow's on his back while his quarterstaff is out. But that's me. You can argue with your GM however you want. You could create 2 different versions of your character sheet. One that's equipped with the bow and one that's equipped with the quarterstaff. But I'm going to try to fix that because I still got some points I could spend. 42 points. Well, obviously, I could bring the strength up. Let's see what happens with that. I'll bring it to 11. And that brings the carry weight to 24 pounds. Close. I need 30. That's not quite there. Well, let's try it to 12. Still there. If I could just get to 29 pounds. Well, it's only at 30.2 pounds. Is there something I could do there? I don't really want him to be that much stronger. You know, looking at the attribute definition, I'm okay with him being above average. That's good, but I don't think he's, bulging muscles. I'm not certain if I want to go that route with this character. But, I may actually play with the carried equipment concept and instead say, the longbow, he doesn't normally carry that around, or it's attached to the backpack or whatever. The thing is, though, if I do it this way, then the GM could rightly say, hey, switching to your longbow, that's going to be multiple ready actions. And I'm okay with that. I think by default, he's going to be using his quarterstaff and his knives. And he's only going to use a longbow for long distance things. So I think I'm okay with that. And so then I'm going to, obviously talk to my GM and say, hey, this is why it's this way. And if you look, a longbow is 3 pounds and a quarterstaff is 4 pounds. So if I drop my quarterstaff to pick up my longbow, that actually is a net +1 weight, so that should be fine. And if I do it this way, then I'm just under the max load of 29 pounds, so he's at encumbrance level none, which is what I was hoping for. And I still have 22 points to spend. See, I've spent 100 on attributes, so the guideline is between 90 and 108, so I could do some more attributes. Advantages is 36 to 54, certainly could add some more advantages, and some more skills. Okay, thinking about the character, he's pretty nimble. He's used to sneaking around in the forest. I consider him pretty agile. He has combat reflexes. So I think I want to give him acrobatics. He knows how to move around like that. So I'm going to give him a quick level of acrobatics. And then one that's not listed in the light skills, but I know it really well, and the rule's very simple. I want to add fast draw arrow. So if I look in the basic set skills, there's fast draw arrow. And you see its references, basics at page 194. But the skill's already in GCS, so I'll drag it there and I know what it does. I'm okay with that. Now, I've still only spent 25 points on skills, and I've bumped up my combat skills, but are there other skills that I want to bump up, because going from rank 1 to rank 2 only costs 1 additional point. It's very cost effective. Well, obviously, tracking, I want him to be a really good tracker. And then I don't like the fact that naturalist and animal handling are below 50%. I'll throw 1 in each of those. And I want him to be better at bow. I think it's worth it to bring him up to a 15 skill. So that's going to be 4 more points. And I've already paid to bring up his perception. So this is a little min-maxy, but I have some perception skills. It might be worthwhile to bump those up just a little bit to get that extra bonus. And stealth. I mean, everybody needs stealth. So we'll bring stealth up 1, scrounging, survival forest, and survival grasslands all up 1. So that brings me to 36 points in skills, which is in the range that I was talking about. So I'm happy with this. I'm happy with the skills he has that makes sense for being an outdoorsman type. I'm happy with the levels he has. Up 12 to 13 is competent. Most job skills for ordinary folks. Okay, so he's sort of ordinary. But 14 to 16, exceptional. The most seasoned of ordinary folks. Well, he doesn't have anything at 17 yet. He's not heroic, but he does have bow at 15, which is good, and knife at 15, and staff at 14. So his combat skills are exceptional. Everything else is pretty good. And then he's got a couple of mundanes at 10. Well, that's fine. He's not a superhero yet. He's just a hero. Now, I was just looking over the character and seeing the dodge of 10, thinking, hey, that's not bad, a 50% dodge. But I forgot, if he's wielding his quarterstaff, his parry is 13. Because quarterstaffs, they get a +2 to parry, and with his combat reflexes, he gets an extra +1. So he has a 13 to parry. Now, of course, you parry the first attack, and then I forget, you get a -4 if you're trying to parry the second attack, and then whatnot. But still, the initial parry is pretty impressive. Now that makes up for the fact that it doesn't do a lot of damage. Even two-handed, a D +4 crushing, assuming it even makes it through the armor, then okay. But he's not made to be a frontline fighter. I mean, he just uses the quarterstaff really to defend himself, and hopefully somebody else does the dirty deed. But I just recently watched Enraged Eggplant's Dungeons and GURPS video on multi-weapon attack. Actually, I asked him if he could tell me how the rules worked, and he made the whole video. So link in the description. It's a good video. And Stan is good at knives. A 15 skill? That's exceptional. And he's going to carry around 2, so he might use the rapid strike combat feature. It's not a maneuver. It's a add-on to your attack. But one thing is, if you're attacking with your second hand, you're at a -4, unless you're ambidextrous. And since I have 9 points left, I'm going to add ambidexterity to his traits. So now we have 100 points in attributes, 40 points in advantages, and 36 points in skills. Man, that's sort of inside the range that I was talking about, and I still have 4 points left over. Well, I could bump up one of these skills. Actually, I think he's going to be really good at hearing. And there's 2 ways of doing that. I can either just put hearing in here. So he was 12, because that's based on perception, but I'll make it 14. That costs 4 points. But that shows up in the attributes. That's fine. Or I could add the acute hearing advantage. They work exactly the same. It just sort of depends on where I want to calculate the values. I want it to show up as a trait. So I'll bring this back down to 12, and then I'll add the acute hearing trait, and I'll Control+ to bring it to level 2. And so now that adds 2 to my hearing. You see hearing has bumped up, but the point cost isn't spent in attributes, it's spent in advantages. But I can now see it down here. And this will be a reminder to me. If the GM says something like, hey, make a perception roll, I might reply back, is this something I can hear? Or is this something that I'm seeing, smelling, touching, tasting? And that has spent all the points. Now, one thing I didn't actually look at was damage. I was really looking at encumbrance and whatnot. But so I'll bring the strength back down, and we can look at the damage for the knife, 1d minus 2, the quarterstaff, 1d plus 2 when you're swinging it two-handed. Oh yeah, the bow doesn't show up because it's not in the equipment. So just for the moment, I'll put it up here. Okay, I need it to be up here in the carried equipment so that it shows up in the attacks. Yeah, obviously, if it's in the other equipment, it doesn't show up in the attacks. But it's weight that I won't be carrying. So again, I would have to clear this with my GM, but I'm going to go into the longbow and change its weight to 0. And I'll put my strength back to 12, make certain, I'm sorry, 12. So I make encumbrance none. But let's look at what happens at strength 10. So the thrown weapons, like, I don't think I'll ever throw my knife, but you never know. It's 1d minus 2, and longbow is 1d. But by increasing the strength to 12, which I needed for the encumbrance, that brings my longbow to 1d plus 1. It brings my quarterstaff to 1d plus 4, and the large knight swung is 1d. So I like the fact that he's a little bit stronger. He's on the above average end of humans, so he does a little more damage. But he's not exceptional, because I don't think of him that way. He's normal intelligence, slightly better health. That's good. His fright check is 12 because of combat reflexes. So he doesn't have a higher willpower, but he doesn't have a better fright check. He's got a decent perception and a great hearing. But I didn't change his starting fatigue points or health points. I'm okay with health points. They've gone up to 12 now. But boy, I'd really love to bring up the fatigue points at least 1. But that costs me 3 character points, which I don't have. So I've got 3 points that I have to give up. You know, I could give up 1 level of acute hearing. He's still slightly better hearing. So control minus. Still got 1 point. And you know what? I think I'm going to bring down his forest and grassland survival. I mean, he knows how to do it. He's not like a super great at it. But then that gives me 1 point extra. And actually, I think I'm going to add that to acrobatics. That's the kind of stuff he did with his squirrel friends when he was a kid. So we'll spend the point there. And voila, I think I'm happy with this character at the moment. I still have $276 to spend out of my starting allotment, but I don't see myself buying any more stuff. The only thing I might buy is, like, I might try to see if I can get an advanced. Okay, this isn't based on the light rules, but in Dungeon Fantasy RPG, you can get weapon modifiers, and I'm wondering if the GM would allow me to get a balanced quarterstaff, which just adds +1 to the skill allowable for any weapon, and basically adds a +4 cost factor. It's 1 plus the cost factor, 100% thereof. So it would take a $10 quarterstaff and make it a $50 quarterstaff. So I'm going to assume he lets me do that, and this is how I do it in GCS. So I take the quarterstaff, change its name and its value, and then go into the attack modes and add 1 to the staff skill. So I'll do the same for thrust. Double click. +1, control enter. There we go. Control enter. And now his fine quarterstaff is got a skill level of 15. Nice. And I still have a ton to spend, but that's going to be all extraneous stuff like wine skins and stuff that'll fit in the backpack. As a character, I think old Stan here is pretty good. I'm happy with it. He can shoot a bow. Pretty good, actually. Yeah, out of 15, that's exceptional. So that's pretty good. His knife's at 15 also. He's going to be okay. Now, he doesn't do a lot of damage. Crushing damage, of course, isn't as good as cutting, impaling. But see, if he's shooting from a distance, that's a really nice thing. And I might have to try out that ambidexterity. Like, if he can get in behind somebody, you know, because he is stealthy, and he can do a rapid strike, he's ambidextrous, maybe spend the extra effort, since he spent a little bit on fatigue, to reduce the rapid strike disadvantage, then he can do 2 stabbing shots with the back. If the guy doesn't know he's there at all, he could make him a telegraphic attack, so he gets +4, and then he could aim for the vitals, because it's an impaling attack. So he could do 2 attacks of 1d minus 1, hopefully get through the armor, and then impaling is going to be ×3 on the torso. Yeah, that might be nice. Now, okay, He's not a thief, and he's not an assassin, but sometimes you just got to know how to use your knives. So there you have it. There is my outdoorsman. I'm actually pretty happy with him. He's useful in combat and has other adventuring skills. Maybe as he progresses, he might become a better archer. It all depends on where the adventures take him, I guess. And as you saw, I had some troubles dealing with the fact that he had 2 primary weapons. But I think I came up with a decent solution. Record the weight of the heaviest weapon and then set the other weapons' weights to 0. But of course, you have to clear this with your GM. I don't expect Sean to quickly switch between bow and other weapons. However, his knives were always at the ready, so that's why they were included in the encumbrance. And this is my process, which includes shuffling points around as I try out different things. This is a minigame, as I've mentioned. And this means that the character concept changes a little bit. And I'm okay with that. I'm basically using the tool to do 2 things. 1, determine the cost, and 2, help me refine my character concept. And I may find that an idea that I had at the beginning just doesn't work out cost-wise. So I change it. And it's not illegal. What matters is what you come out with at the end. You now have a character designed for your GM setting that fits in the cost criteria and you're happy with. Done. I know this is a long video, so if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you. If I could, I would reach out and give everyone a hug. Yeah, I'm a hugger. And as always, thank you for watching.